everybody, this is John Burns with New Heights 360, and I have a very special guest on today, Carrie Schmitt, who has a unbelievable story. And it's a very touching story, and it's a story that I really felt like needs to be shared, in my opinion. And it's not a story that's over. It's like a story that's going on a daily basis, and it's changing and evolving and moving, but the base of the story has not changed.
True.
And you're with Team Jackson.
Yes.
And for those of you out there are probably wondering who Team Jackson is, Team Jackson was her 7-year-old son who passed away in July. And the story to it and where we're at today is very interesting, and how we even became connected is even crazier.
Yeah, definitely.
That all revolved around a garage door.
Yeah.
Who would have thought?
Yeah.
So with that, Carrie, I wanted to go ahead and just let you kind of roll with, sharing your story and kind of how we ended up here today.
Okay.
With this whole situation.
All right. Well, I am married to my husband, Mike. Together we have 2 sons, Jackson, who was 7, and Ivan just turned 4. Mike also has a daughter who's 18, Grace. I guess really the story started about 5 years ago. A friend of mine at work decided to do St. Baldrick's and shave her head for childhood cancer research. And at that time, a girl that I went to high school with had lost her son to cancer, but that was the only person that I knew. And my reasoning for shaving my head was because I couldn't imagine having a child with cancer. So I went to the event at Helen Fitzgerald's and shaved my head, and the event there is unbelievable. They have about 360 people that shave their head every year, and about 88 of them are women. So it's not to say that it's not a big deal when a guy shaves his head, because it is, but it's a really big deal when a woman shaves her head.
Oh, that's huge.
Yeah, because women's hair is like a lot of times how they identify themselves.
Sure.
So it actually kind of, when I realized that, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I like, being a little bit different. And after I shaved my head, I cried for about 3 days. And then after that, I really have never felt more beautiful. I realized how much people stared. Which gave me empathy, because I realized that I probably inadvertently stared at people without thinking about it. But they have little buttons that say, ask me why I'm bald, or bald by choice, and then that kind of gets the conversation flowing. So I shaved my head for 3 years, and then I volunteered a year, and then in 2019, Jackson, my son, decided to shave his head for a trivia night for our friends whose daughter had cancer but went into remission.
Wow, at such a young age.
Yeah. He had seen me do it, and
but he came up with it on his own.
He wanted to do it on his own. I've never forced him to do anything like that. And so at school, when he was telling his classmates, and teachers and stuff, his teacher said everyone looked at him like he had 2 heads, because you just don't hear about a first grader all the time, saying that they want to do something for children. And, he didn't. The only person he knew was his friend who had went into remission. So at the trivia night, he was the only person who shaved, and he raised $1,200 that night. And
how unbelievable is that?
I know. It was awesome. And everybody was so proud of him. And so fast forward to March. Well, let me tell a little bit of a backstory.
Sure.
I was a surrogate, so I carried a baby for a couple that I did not know previous to this. I didn't know previous to being matched with this couple.
Okay.
And I lost my train of thought a little bit. So I was pregnant at the time that Jackson shaved his head. And so if we can fast forward to May, I was about 7 months pregnant. and Jackson's legs started hurting, and we were trying to figure that out. And at the time, my mind was
Growing pains or something?
That's exactly what we thought it was.
Because I had that real bad when I
Yeah.
was around that age, where
Yeah.
growing pains in the legs.
Exactly.
Mom and Dad rubbed the legs at night.
Right. So we had went to the doctor, and we were going through various different channels, and we just really weren't getting any answers. And so, it would come and go, but mostly it was there from about the beginning of May on. It was summertime. It was hot. I was big pregnant, so I really didn't feel like doing a whole lot outside. So the fact that his activity level was a little bit lower didn't register much with me. He still liked to go swimming, so we would go swimming. That was something I liked to do too. So there were red flags, but I don't know. It was nagging me. I didn't really know for sure. Like, I just couldn't quite figure it out. But my mind was half focused on the fact that I was going to deliver a baby for someone else, and half focused on how do we get to the root of this issue with his leg. So I delivered the surrogate baby, healthy baby boy, July 8th. Jackson and my other son, Ivan, came to the hospital, held the baby. Everybody got to celebrate that. And so, because Jackson was very attached to my pregnant belly, and he rubbed my belly, and, he was really very into it. And it was really important for me to not just tell my kids to help other people. I wanted to show them. And I also wanted them to see that there is a lot of goodness in this world, because I feel like we can get very bogged down by all the negativity. And it's very present. But if you can focus on the beautiful things, there are a lot of beautiful things that go on
absolutely.
too. So I've always tried to really not just tell them, but show them. So obviously the surrogacy was a big deal for our family. So
now, was he like that when Ivan was in your belly too?
Oh yeah, he loved my belly. He loves babies, loves little kids, loves to hold babies so much. So he definitely was very into it. Now, he was definitely a little bit jealous of his brother because he took some attention away from him. So this was kind of a good deal, It's like I get to carry this baby.
I get to enjoy it, but the baby's going away.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Because they like the idea of having a little baby around, but I'm like, well, that's just one more thing to take attention away from you.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how we.
I think they like the idea, but when they realize, because I remember my 12-year-old when my 8-year-old came along, he come up to me one day and he's like, "So when does he leave?"
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Because he was over it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yes, that's definitely Jackson. He loved his brother very much, but he realized that took some attention away from him too. So, So I got released from the hospital on a Wednesday, and my husband had a stomach bug, and then he got better, and then Jackson showed up with a stomach bug on Friday, and so we kind of thought that he was following in the same steps as Mike, and then he just wasn't turning the corner. And so Sunday morning, I couldn't get him to eat or drink anything, so I was like, well, maybe he's dehydrated. So I took him to the hospital, or took him to the emergency room, and he started answering questions in a very weird way, just not like he would normally respond to questions. And so they did a head CT at the emergency room. And when they came back, they said that there were some abnormal spots in his brain, and so that they were going to send him on to Children's Hospital. And they thought it was encephalitis. At this point, I'm still thinking,
he's going to be okay.
Yeah, he's going to be okay. Right.
We're going to figure this out.
Yeah. And then they said also that he had they felt a mass in his leg, which wasn't really a surprise to me either, because we had been trying to figure out what was going on with his leg. And so when we got to Children's, they really started getting busy with doing different tests and stuff like that. And later that night, they came back after doing a brain MRI and an MRI of his femur, that he had multiple strokes and a 9-inch tumor in his femur.
So would that explain why he was not answering things?
Yes.
So just in that short period of time?
Yes.
I think
Yes.
you said like 6 strokes.
Well, at that point, he had about 3. And
So
then,
he had about 3.
Right. So this was on a Sunday. And then Monday, we found out that he also had a flap on his mitral valve. And they weren't sure if the strokes or the blood clots were coming from the tumor or the flap on his mitral valve. Everything was so emergent and just moving so quickly that they weren't able to really be able to tell that at the time. So then on Tuesday, he had a few more strokes. So he had a total of 6 strokes in his brain, strokes in his spleen and his kidney, the flap on his mitral valve, and then the 9-inch tumor in his femur. And we were in total shock. I mean, total shock.
This is like being thrown from a car on the highway at 70 miles an hour.
Yes. And then I was, 6 days postpartum also. So I'm pushing a breast pump around the PICU, trying to...
With hormones bouncing around like a rubber ball.
It felt very cruel. Very cruel. And so, we had a lot of visitors. We were really holding on to hope. Like I said, everything was changing so quickly. So it was like what ended up becoming the issue was the pressure in his brain. The cancer was definitely a problem.
Right.
But it was like they had to focus on what was going on with his brain. The swelling was just, they couldn't control it.
Were they not sure what was causing it, or?
It was hard for them to get to that answer because everything in his brain became such an issue, like the swelling and
it was happening so quickly.
It was happening very quickly. So we were told, I was told at 3:00 in the morning on Saturday, July 20th, that there was nothing that they could do. And they told us that his brain was going to herniate, which means that it swells so much that it falls out of the cavity.
Oh my gosh.
Which is horrible to think about. First of all, when they said our 7-year-old son had multiple strokes, I was like, how does a 7-year-old have multiple strokes? I don't even understand that.
I don't even know how you would wrap your brain around it.
We couldn't, and we probably didn't. We were probably halfway walking around in denial. There were 8 different teams of doctors talking to us, and I was like, we were getting fire hosed every second of the day. New information. It was like we had people there that were almost like interpreting for us and that were writing down notes, because it was just like, plus we had another child at home who we really didn't want to bring him up because he had so much equipment on him, and we just really weren't sure how to deal with that. There are child life specialists at the hospital who I actually had worked with someone who used to be a child life specialist, so I knew that those services were available, which I'm so thankful now, because they did music therapy for Jackson while he was there. He loved music so much, and so they came up and played the guitar and sang to him and played like his favorite songs, and it seemed to kind of lower his
pressures
in his brain. And they said if we're in the room and we're talking to him and that brings his pressures down, then you stay in here and talk to him all day. But if you're in there and it makes his pressures go up, then we need to really have low stimulation in the room. So it was always kind of like
walking a fine line.
I didn't know what to do. I just wanted to do what was best for him. But because, again, at this time, we still thought he was going to survive. They gave us, I'm not upset that they weren't giving us false hope. They were telling us the truth. But we were holding on to hope because we didn't want our son to die. And
it was so sudden. In the span of less than a week, literally your whole entire way of life was
Yeah.
just flipped upside down.
Yeah, we were ready to make arrangements to have Ivan with a nanny because I'm like, well, if Jackson's going to be going through chemotherapy, we really shouldn't have Ivan at a daycare because I don't want all those germs. I mean, like, I was like planning for the long haul, like how I was going to be at home and how I was going to be with Ivan because we wanted Ivan to have some normalcy too because he didn't know what was going on, you know. So with the child life specialists, they helped us because I'm like, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to tell him that his brother is dying. And so because of his developmental age, they don't understand death really until about 4.5. Their brains just can't really
Right.
comprehend the permanency of it. So, you know, a lot of times people kind of want to fluff it up a little bit because it's easier. You know, sometimes people say, well, grandma's asleep. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then the kid's like wondering when
Well,
grandma's
right.
going to wake back up.
Right.
But
And they told us, they said, you have to use the words died and death. You
Okay.
cannot say we lost Jackson or he passed away because if we say to Ivan, we lost Jackson, he might say, well, where is he?
or when are we going to go look for him?
Right, right. So to use those kind of words is painful at times.
So in the midst of dealing with all this, you're also having to navigate with your youngest.
Right, right. Yes. So we were switching back and forth. Mike and I would go home one night and he would stay at the hospital. So that way, at least one of us was getting a good night's rest and we were giving normalcy to Ivan. I mean, whatever normalcy is now, we have a whole new version of what normal is. But he was getting tossed around and he was not liking it. So it was like, okay, let's give him some kind of,
Stability.
Right. So we brought him up to the hospital and we gave him the choice because you know what? This is the kind of situation where you don't get any do-overs. I can't look back later and say, I wish we would have let him see him. Or, you know, I was like, that's my form of parenting anyway, is a very honest, upfront, we got to tell the truth. You know, unfortunately I've seen situations of where people want to protect their child and so they don't want to face those kind of
And
things.
it can actually cause more harm.
It really can. It really can. So through the guidance of the child life specialist, you know, Ivan got to be there and he got, if he wanted to, we didn't make him. And it was hard. I mean,
I can't even imagine what. So in the whole scheme of this experience up to that point, and then you add that experience.
Yeah. I really feel like Ivan was probably so confused because I had been at the hospital to deliver a baby, and then now we're at a different hospital, and his brother's there, and his brother was okay, and then all of a sudden he wasn't okay.
So he probably wasn't totally processing.
No, but you know, you would be surprised.
But they're pretty smart too. So
they're
it's,
so much smarter than we give them credit
yeah.
for.
So it's know.
Yeah, he when we brought him in the room, because we had to say he doesn't need his arms and legs anymore, or his head. You know, I mean, they need that concrete information.
Right.
So he wanted to see his hands and he wanted to see his feet. That's what he needed to do. And he knew that he had a machine that was breathing for him. And so we said, well, what do you think would happen if they turn the machine off? And he said he would stop breathing and he would die.
So he was able to.
He did comprehend that.
Okay.
Which, losing a child is obviously the most painful and a parent's worst nightmare. Having to have a conversation like this with my 3.5-year-old baby, to me, was the worst. I mean, I'm proud of how we did it, but to say that is when my heart split into two, that's the only way I can describe it. Because I'm constantly now feeling pulled because all I do is think about Jackson. I mean, there is not one second in the day that my mind is not thinking about Jackson. His memories and just the time we had together and when he was born and everything. I mean, there is a movie in my head at all times. I sometimes don't even know how I function.
Well, and it's not like you had a lot of time.
No, but the 7 years that we did have.
No, I'm talking about like when he got sick, it was like
agreed.
so.
Yes.
I mean, you guys were like on a
we had 12,
fast track.
We had 12 hours.
I mean,
Yeah, we had 12 hours.
I just having 4 kids myself. I'm not going to pretend I understand.
But you can empathize because you know how much you love them.
Yeah, but
Right.
I feel that like
Right.
I can just imagine in such a short window.
Yeah.
You're just thrown into this.
Yeah, they took such beautiful care of Jackson and us at Children's Hospital. There were doctors that hugged me and cried with me and just loved me in a way because they have unimaginable jobs. I mean, you're dealing with people's pride and joys, and so, if there was anything that could ease anything, it was how much the doctors cared for us too, So, very quickly after Jackson died, we read to our kids a lot, and I was looking for books on how to help Ivan understand this. And again, because we were so honest about it, that was really kind of the approach that I was looking for. And a lot of the books were
Fluffing it up again.
Oh yeah, Fluffy the bunny died, and I'm not diminishing when someone loses a pet.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
But
A brother's a little different
right,
though.
even like grandma died.
Right.
That isn't the same as losing your sibling at this age, and to be able to just really get that kind of a grasp. So I was looking online, I was looking at the library, I was just grasping, and I'm like, I guess they don't have any books for people who lost a sibling. So
Which consequently is kind of forging a new path for you.
It is not something I ever fathomed I would do. But I guess I'm learning through the situation that if I can't find what I'm looking for, then maybe I just have to do it myself. So literally at first I was like, you're crazy. You do not need to write a book. Like, seriously, like you just lost your son. You don't need to be doing stuff like that. And it just kept coming back. It just coming back. So I'm like, all right, I'm just going to sit down. I'm going to write down these words. It just like, it just came out one day. I'm like, okay.
Almost kind of divinely inspired,
It really was. It really was. I cannot explain it any
I don't know
other
where
way.
this is coming from,
Right.
but it's really good.
Right. And I'm like, well, okay, so I have done 0 editing. It was just like these words came out, but it really was inspired by the help from the child life specialist because of those words, it did help Ivan to understand. And so.
And it could be very useful to parents either now or in the future.
Right.
Because though tragic,
Yes.
there's other parents that
Absolutely.
that have young siblings.
Right. And there's so many layers to kind of why I decided to write this book. At first, when Jackson died, we were looking at pictures and videos and crying and just
leveled
everything. And so we would be looking at videos and Ivan would say, well, what about me? I was like, okay, we better look at videos of you too, because it was just like our minds were just so overtaken with Jackson. And so, when we would be sad and crying, we would say, Ivan, we are so sad that Jackson died, but we are glad you're still here, because I didn't want him to feel like he didn't matter to us. Because it was so hard to balance our attention. He's 3.5, so he needs us for everything, but we couldn't think straight. I mean, we couldn't.
Probably just getting up in the morning took a monumental effort.
We had people that were bringing us food, that were going to the grocery store for us, that were doing laundry for us, that were cleaning our house. And to be honest, if we didn't have that, I don't know how we would have eaten. Because I ate because I had to.
Well, you kind of shared the first month or two. You don't even know how anything got done.
No, I really don't. I'm surprised that we didn't get our electric turned off or anything, because I don't know how I did it. I don't know. I mean, I think I did, But I have almost zero recollection of the month after he died because I didn't go anywhere. I did not leave the house. And it was partially because I didn't have to. People were very caring for us, which I just can never thank people enough, because we, there was just so much in our mind and, sorting through everything. And, your mind just goes into like protection mode, because if you really felt the gravity of the situation all at once, I truly believe it would kill me. I mean, it's like your brain only allows you to process so much at a time.
Well, the first time I met you was a couple Saturdays ago at Santa Claus fundraiser we were doing, and I was a little shocked at how well you carried yourself.
Well, part of it is because I feel that Ivan has already been slighted enough. He lost his big brother. He lost the person that he looked up to. And I say this all the time. If either one of my children wanted to be an only child, it was Jackson, not Ivan. He looked up to his brother so much. And Ivan really wouldn't give me much of a choice, because he has a very upbeat personality. He likes to go.
He does. He's about as cute as can be.
Yeah, and he's a little firecracker. So, I mean, I can probably lay in bed for about 30 seconds in the morning before he's ready to rock and roll. And so, while sometimes that's hard, I'm also thankful for that, because, and if it wasn't for him, I don't know where we would be, and I don't know if I would be getting out of bed or not. So he is definitely a blessing and the reason that we keep going. And he sometimes will say the sweetest things to us. We're crying and we're sad, and he'll say, "Well, I'm not sad because Jackson's in my heart." Oh, I know. And I mean, it's so beautiful, but it's also like
so tragic at the same time.
So hard. I mean, but we're trying to give him the tools, to be able to talk about it and process it and understand it. And he's in play therapy, and I'm so thankful for that too, because again, I don't know how to do this. There is no guidebook on how to do this. And I am constantly grasping at straws on how to figure this out.
Which is kind of, maybe not with absolute clarity, but it's kind of cutting a new mission for you.
It is. And I like to volunteer, and I like to do things for others, and I'm finding and feeling so much that, first of all, if one of Jackson's friends died, I know he would be doing the exact same things that his friends have done. Let's see, it was in October, so that would have been about 3 months after Jackson died. One of his classmates wanted to do a lemonade stand. And so right at our little gas station by our subdivision.
In honor of Jackson?
In honor of Jackson, for the St. Baldrick's. So they had a lemonade stand and told the school district and people around. They raised $1,200 in 3 hours. These little girls for Girl Scouts. So that was kind of one of the things that came from this. So that was beautiful too, because I love to think about, kids having that kind of a giving heart, because Jackson had that kind of a giving heart. And, it's like, if this could be turning these kids into advocates and, speaking up for childhood cancer, because it needs to be spoken up about. I feel like it's a taboo subject that people don't want to talk about. And I'm starting to wonder if it's because it's horrifying. Who wants to talk about kids having cancer?
Of course it's horrifying. But
right.
When you think about it, so Jackson's run here on Earth wasn't very long. But if you go to today and look at the impact he's having in so many different directions.
Oh, my gosh. Well,
so, that's the beauty and the tragedy.
Oh, yes.
Is that he's like this force that's got his classmates raising money. I mean, just good things that this world really needs a lot more of.
Yeah. Well, he had it on his bucket list that he wanted to become a legend.
I think he's
Yeah. This isn't the way we wanted him to become a legend.
Right.
But if beauty can come from this kind of a tragedy, then his life had an amazing purpose. And trust me, I think you can already tell in the short time that you've known me, I will spend the rest of my life raising awareness and making sure that his name is kept alive, because he was and is, I mean, his funeral, his service, there was, people have said, I've never been to a service like that. I've never been to a service with that many people, and just the, we celebrated his life and shared him singing Sweet Child of Mine. That was a song that my husband sang to both of our boys at bedtime. And we've had, it's almost hard for me to even recall. So Jackson, we had ordered a backpack for Jackson, and it came about 2 weeks after he died. Oh. And that was something that just about knocked me flat, because Jackson loved school, and he was so smart. He already had his second grade sight words memorized, and he wasn't even in second grade yet. Wow. And so I offered his backpack to some of his classmates, because I'm like, well, maybe they would want to have it to think of Jackson, but they all said it was too sad and too hard. So I was like, well, I'm just going to fill it up with some supplies, and I'm going to take it up to the school. Maybe somebody that needs it can use it. That ended up turning into a school supply drive where we collected 100 backpacks. We filled an additional 20 backpacks full of supplies and took them to a school in the city. So that was something that came of this.
I mean, how amazing is that, though?
It started with the backpack.
2 weeks after he's gone, and he's already got the ball rolling with one backpack that led into all these other kids' lives that were improved because of all these events prior.
Exactly. Yep. So we've had my Pilates class raised like $350, and they gave me a picture that was hand-drawn by an artist in Great Britain. It was a picture of Jesus hugging Jackson.
Wow.
Oh, yeah, it was painfully beautiful. But, his story is being told virtually all over the world. And so, it's a tragedy. And even though people say, oh, you're carrying this so well, I don't ever want to give off that this is not painfully almost impossible at times.
No, and I didn't mean that.
No. But I get people say that a lot.
But you were just very, I guess I always reflect everything on myself, and I don't know that I would be able to be as strong in light of that. Just being honest.
Yeah, and I realize that
because I'd never met you before, so
I realize that this is not everybody's path, and I will never, ever, ever judge how anybody else does this.
Sure.
This is what feels right to me, and I promised at his service that I would do everything I could to honor his name, and I take that mission very seriously. So we decided, I think it was either a month or 6 weeks after he died, that I wanted to have a St. Baldrick's at his school, because I really wanted to raise awareness about it. His death was the first death in 25 years at his school.
Oh, wow.
So his school and his district was very, very affected by this. So we knew already that we were going to do St. Baldrick's. And then I was like, I think we need to do a St. Baldrick's for Jackson. And, at the time, I was grief-stricken,
Sure.
But what that has turned into has really blown me away also. So we met another family at one of the support groups that we go to, and they raised money for St. Baldrick's for their son who died of cancer also. And they told us about something called the Hero Fund, which is if you raise a minimum of $10,000, you get to specify where the research funds go. If you just raise money, it goes towards childhood cancer
Just a general.
research, right? Which is fine, but because of Jackson's type of cancer, is osteosarcoma,
Which was very rare.
it is very rare. And so also the complication that he had, only 4% of people with osteosarcoma get this mitral flap on their mitral valve.
So they're related.
They were related, we found.
Okay.
We found that out. And then of that 4%, only 40% throw the clots like he did. So his situation was like totally,
Like the absolute worst case scenario.
unfortunately, yes,
Yeah.
it was. Yes, it was. But it did help for us to make sense of kind of the craziness that went on in the hospital, because I was super nervous the day that we were going to get the autopsy results. I'm like, how do you do this? How do you go get autopsy results for your kid? I mean,
I don't even know how you would sit through that conversation.
because of the wonderful doctors that,
So they
that were so kind to us.
They took a more loving approach.
Oh gosh, yes. Oh my gosh, yes. Met when we could, on our terms. Not, we didn't really want to go. We didn't want to go back to the hospital. And in time, I can imagine myself possibly working at the hospital because I had such a positive. It's hard to say that it was a positive experience, but in such a nightmare. For them to, if I don't even think they could ever be rude to people, but it's like if they weren't as nice to us, obviously we would have had a totally different outcome. But so yeah, to find out that those things were connected did help us to make sense of it. But so with the Hero Fund, if we raise $10,000, we get to specify where the funds go, and then we get to name the grant after Jackson.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know you get to name the grant,
Yep,
too.
yep.
I know you told me the first part, but I didn't know.
Yes. So that was our immediate goal, was to raise $10,000. And interestingly, this is maybe another God thing, another coincidence, if you will. I know about one doctor, and I don't have any doctor friends. But the one doctor I know is a sarcoma specialist here in St. Louis.
How wild is that? I mean, what's the chances?
There are 65 sarcoma specialists in the United States.
But I mean, to have one that is in St. Louis and is your friend.
It's my old boss's husband. So I'm just like, what are the odds? So we are actually, because he does predominantly adult research, but he's establishing a program between Washington University and Children's Hospital to do the research for children. So he's actually going to apply for the grant to receive the research funds so that the funds would stay local. So we're crossing our fingers that he would actually get the research funds, because then it's someone that we know. Here's the bottom line. This isn't going to bring Jackson back to us. But if we can help so that not one more person has to go through something like this, again, Jackson's life was not in vain. So as much as I would give all this up to have my son back, that isn't the case for us, unfortunately. So
do you think that's kind of, just trying to understand better, because everybody deals with grief differently, but from one perspective, do you think that it's helped you to kind of turn this into a purpose as far as your grieving and keeping your feet moving? Because you really could go one or two ways with it.
Oh, yeah.
Complete shutdown.
Yep.
And who knows what else. Or trying to, like I picture a plane going down and you're just pulling with both arms trying to get this thing righted.
Yeah. The day after Jackson died, our children's pastor from our church drove. He's gone to a different church now, but he drove from Oklahoma City the day after Jackson died and came and talked to us and said some things to us that really changed the trajectory of how we were going to do this. He said, he's like, you can kind of go one of two ways with this. He's like, you can become bitter and angry and, not be able to get past this and not ever be able to have joy in your life again, or you can choose to find joy and to honor him. And I mean, it was, as soon as he said that, I'm like, this is a no-brainer to me. I mean, I'm not going to stop living for Ivan, because that's not fair to him. Now, I'd be lying if I said there are some days I wish I could lay in bed and cry and just shut down. But I know Jackson wouldn't want that. And
it's almost as if he's kind of pushing you.
He is.
Come on, Mom. Get on up. We're going to do this another day. He
is guiding me. Everything I do is what would Jackson want? I want him to be proud. And I feel like he would be proud. And the way that the connections with people and the relationships and everything, there is no other explanation. I mean...
Well, we met through a garage door.
Yeah,
actually, you and I didn't meet.
That's true.
Your husband was doing a garage door for... we were doing something nice for some important people to us for their new home.
Yeah.
And a bunch of us collaborated on it. And Keith put me in communication with Mike, and we were coordinating. And but Keith didn't tell me the backstory.
Right. Oh, wow. You didn't know it?
I didn't know the backstory till after the garage door was put up.
Wow.
So that had a really profound impact on me.
Right.
And I just recently met you, and actually just met Mike Friday.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't realize you hadn't met him. Wow.
I've never met Mike.
Wow.
So that's the first time I met Mike. But so Keith became very touched by Mike's story and your story, shared with me, which kind of pulled me in. And it's just been crazy, but like everything's kind of getting all interconnected, and it's neat in one sense.
Yeah, it really is.
But it's just amazing to me that when you look at the core of such a major tragedy, but then you look at all the lives that are starting to be changed and touched by Jackson, it's very powerful.
It really is. It really is. And I feel so strongly that his story needs to be shared. Yeah, I mean...
And you just met with somebody to kind of get the ball rolling with this book. Or you're getting ready to, I'm sorry.
Yes, I'm getting ready to.
You had a conversation.
Yeah.
But
so a friend of mine... So really the book at first was, I'm just going to write this for Ivan. And then I started to realize and think that he can't be the only 3-year-old who's lost a sibling. And I can't be the only parent who wants to be honest and have a conversation with their child. Don't get me wrong, it's hard. But I want to give him the best possible chance to still thrive and have a normal life, because, I mean, this is a tragedy for him too. You know, I mean, who knows what's going to happen with him, but I'm going to do everything I can to give him the best possible tools to, to thrive and, maybe make a difference in his life at some point, which I truly
But it almost seems like it could be kind of a guidebook for the grieving parents as well.
Yeah, and the basis of the book is reminding the child that we're glad that they're still there, but also it's a reminder for the parent also that sometimes it is hard to think about this other child, but if you're reminded of that early on, it could possibly help the way that you go too, because you do, as hard as it is to have to take care of a child while you're grieving, they're grieving, they don't understand, you're trying to maneuver all this. It's still important for them to get that message, and it calms him every time we say that we're glad that he's still there, because he's probably going to get tired of hearing about Jackson all the time. I mean, you know what I mean? Because we talk about him a lot. I mean, maybe he's not going to get tired of it, but, I mean, there's a lot of our attention is on him, and, so we're always still trying to find the right balance.
Look, nobody's keeping score because, that's the thing. Sometimes I think we are a little harder on ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
Like, this lady's going to come out of the closet and say, I've been observing your parenting.
Right.
And here's all the places you're falling
short. Well, people are they're very critical about parenting and different things like that.
No, yeah,
but you know what I'm saying.
I'm
That's
talking
just
about more of an
right.
internal,
right.
because I do this even with my own kids. Like, at times feel like maybe I'm not doing the best that I could be doing.
Yeah.
And, but sometimes it's just life is busy. Things are going on. You're trying to take care of everybody. And then there's only so much of you to go around.
Yeah, it's definitely hard to balance all that. That's for sure. But what was I going to say? I had something I was going to say.
I probably interrupted.
That's
you,
all right. It's surprising that I haven't lost my train of thought yet because.
Can I share the Lego story?
Yes.
So, we were at the Our Lady of the Snows. Or actually, we might have still been at La Casona. But Ivan came up and I said, I heard you don't like Legos. I think we were actually at Our Lady of the Snow. I said, so I heard you don't like Legos. And he goes, I like Legos. I said, I heard you didn't like them. And he looks at me and he goes, you're just being silly. But
he's
I thought, how smart is he? He figured out that I was just joshing around with them.
You can't get much past him, that's for sure.
But what a neat experience that was for him that night. To something he loves as much as Legos, and they had that whole display.
Yeah, and I mean that's been, we're embarking our first holiday season without Jackson, and that's not easy. Everything we do, his absence is noticed very much. I mean, he was 7 years old, so he was, always with us. Yeah. But
do you ever forget that sometimes?
That he was 7?
No. That he's not with you?
Yes. Because there's times where I talk, like, I mean.
But I would almost get, like, out of the car.
Right.
And I know you get Ivan out, but my brain would be like, oh, I have to go get Jackson.
Yeah. It's definitely, it's hard. I mean, it's, even, like, when we go to a restaurant, I mean, tables are almost always tables of 4. And we were out to ice cream a couple of weeks ago, and I mean, we, go out to dinner and stuff, and sometimes I notice it and sometimes I don't, but we were sitting at a table, and it was a table for 4, and I hated seeing that empty seat. So I kept switching seats, and then I just moved the seat out of the way because I'm like, I don't want to see that empty chair. I mean, I just, it's almost like you want to deny it because it hurts so much, and, like, the only way I feel like I am getting through this is going day by day. When I get too far ahead of myself, it's more than my mind can handle. There's times where I am sad because Jackson never got to lose a tooth, and he wanted so badly to lose a tooth. He didn't get to go to 2nd grade. He never gets to have a girlfriend. But you can see that path, going down that path is torture. I mean, it's torture. So I guess my own way of coping is I just have to take the punches as they come, When I get too focused on that, it's just not a place that I want to be.
It's kind of a rabbit hole that...
Trust me, I think about it, and it's in my movie, in my head.
Yeah.
But, I just always go back to,
Now, you did honor him on Thanksgiving.
We did.
Which I thought was very cool because you posted that. And
yeah. Like I said, I don't know what I'm doing. I am always grasping at something that I think I just want him included. I mean, it doesn't feel right for me not to include him, even at the Santa, when we had the pictures with Santa. I cried because I've never had a picture taken of just Ivan without Jackson. So I brought his 8x10 and Santa held the picture. And so then he was a part of it because he was 7. He would be getting his picture taken with Santa if he was here. And then on Thanksgiving, we set a spot for him. And I've learned some things through kind of the online grieving groups and stuff. And we just are kind of taking pieces that we want, to incorporate in our life. So we lit 7 candles. And at Thanksgiving, we all said what we were thankful for, who did we miss, and some memories with them. So that gave people the opportunity to share whoever they missed. Obviously, mostly everybody missed Jackson, but, my cousin missed her father and her brother, you know? So it was like, I'm learning how to normalize this, and because this is a part of my life now, and it's very hard to be the person that sometimes people don't want to talk to, because I like to talk to people. I'm a people person, so when people who used to speak to me don't speak to me because it's awkward for them, it's too painful, that's hard. That's hard for me. I can empathize, but I'm like, I'm still a person. You know what I mean? Like, but
Do you almost think though that maybe for some of them they just don't know what to say?
yeah,
And it's not even a case that they don't care or they don't
Right.
care about you, but it's just like, I just don't know what to
right.
say.
And we've had one of Jackson's classmates, his father came over to drop something off right after he died. And I mean, he was visibly nervous. He was like, I'm sorry, guys, I'm really nervous. I don't know what to say. And I was like, you know what? I want to let you off the hook. There's nothing you can say that's going to make us feel better. So just take that pressure off yourself. You know, talking about Jackson.
Do you think that's kind of the pretense sometimes people have with you?
Yeah. And it's hard too because, you know, I'm not scared to talk about things. I'm not scared to talk about subjects that might be taboo to some people, but
But your openness, and I noticed this when we were at the Santa Claus thing, your openness kind of diffuses an issue with the conversation.
Right. I hope that.
No, I'm
Right.
just telling you
Right.
that it was like you kind of established a set of comfort
Right.
that it was okay to talk with you.
Right. Well, you know, it's interesting too because
Because you don't know. I mean,
Right,
you really
right.
you really don't know.
Right.
It's not that I didn't care.
Right.
It's like I don't even know how to approach this.
right. I
But you kind of grabbed the bull by the
well,
horns, and you're like, yeah, this is. I was like,
right.
wow,
Yeah.
she is making this way easier than I expected.
Well, good. That actually makes me feel really good because I've been told that I'm very matter of fact how I talk about the story, which was actually slightly hurtful to me. But this is my story. I mean, I wish it wasn't my story, but this is my story.
Right.
And I want to share it. I feel like I have to share it. And if I can make it so that people can say in the future, I've been very vocal on social media, and I've written quite a bit about my struggles, and people have reached out to me and said, please keep writing, please keep sharing, because that's therapeutic for me. So I started a blog, and that's really just because I was doing it already anyway, and I called it The Beautiful Tragedy because for me, the surrogacy and Jackson's death are intertwined. They're not separate events to me. So that was so beautiful, you know, and then obviously this was a tragedy, but even still, what has come from this tragedy is for us deeper friendships and relationships and people who have just walked into the fire with us. And I just can't be more thankful, you know, for people. When you come over, it's not easy to sit with someone in this kind of pain. It's not easy. But people, you know, I feel like so many people are being affected by that, and they're not coming over trying to fix it because this is something that you can't fix. And that's hard. That's hard for people.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's like, because I think a lot of people are inclined to try to resolve, especially if it's somebody they care about.
Right.
But there is no resolution to that.
Yeah. I said early on, as long as you don't come to me and say, this was God's will or he's in a better place, as long as you don't say those things to me, I'm not going to get upset. Now, as far as I know, he's in heaven. I know that. But he's 7 years old and he should be with me. That's why I don't want that to be said. And at first, I had a hard time. I don't blame God. I don't believe that God did this. I do wonder why he couldn't perform a miracle. But our grief counselor told us that I have to screw the whys, because you're never going to get the answer. Why did this happen? It's never going to make sense. I mean, I had to almost repeat the story so many times because I was trying to make sense of something.
But you could almost make
sense.
yourself crazy
Yes.
trying to nail down the whys.
Yeah. So I'm not saying I always do that, and I'm not saying I'm always successful, but I definitely don't need any more reasons to blame myself, or, if I did this, then maybe this wouldn't have happened. I mean, it's just not productive. It doesn't help, So I try not to do those things. I'm not saying I always do it, because trust me, I do not know how to do this. But I'm trying. I'm not going to give up. In these grief groups that I'm in, it's sad because, I saw situations where it had been 9 years for someone and they still couldn't get out of bed. And trust me, I can understand that.
Oh, yeah.
I can understand that, But I had a pretty strong mission before.
So what are some of the things you tell yourself when you're having one of those mornings where getting up doesn't even feel like an option for that day? Because you have to be going somewhere deep. Just out of curiosity, you don't have to tell me. I just
I do a lot for Ivan. I have to do a lot of hard things.
He keeps you on your toes.
He does. He's a busy guy. One of our friends said he's actually kind of like having 2 kids, which is kind of true because he's just a busy kid, but he's very smart. He's a happy kid.
Intuitive.
Oh yeah. He'll see us cry. I mean, we haven't muted our emotions around him.
Right.
Because we want to show him that it's okay to cry. It's okay to be sad. I don't like that mentality because I feel like men in a lot of ways have been kind of suppressed. Like, you're not a man if you cry. It's like, no. When you lose a child, if you mute those kind of emotions, it's going to turn out to be bad news later on in life.
Yeah, it's going to come out sideways
right
at some point.
And I feel like, I have to, it's almost like sometimes I feel like I'm a masochist because I'm like, I just keep pushing through and facing things. And trust me, like, I don't know, a couple weeks after Jackson died, we went to Bounce U. And I sobbed the whole time I was there because that was a place that Jackson loved. And, I was trying really hard. To have fun for Ivan, but I wasn't having fun. I hated it. It was horrible. But I'm like, everywhere I go, I'm going to think about Jackson. We took our kids everywhere. We were always going. We were always doing something. And I am so, so, so happy that we did that because I have no regrets. We showed Jackson, he wanted to do everything. He took horseback riding lessons. He took guitar lessons. He took piano lessons. He took taekwondo. He
packed a lot in.
He did.
In 7
he really
years.
did. He did. He wanted to eat everything. He would try anything. This child loved clams.
Oh, yeah.
He loved frog legs. I'm not kidding you. He would try anything. And I'm like, oh gosh, was he like soaking it all up? You know what I mean?
He was almost like fast tracking.
Oh, he really was. He was. I'm not kidding you. He lived a lot of life in 7 years, and I have a good friend who works for Stray Rescue, and so we would follow the stories of the dogs on Stray Rescue, and there was a dog in our neighborhood that was lost, and he just couldn't stand the thought of this dog being lost. And so there was one day, there was another dog that was running around, and he just had to go get that dog and take it back to his owner. And he was so proud of himself for doing that. And, he had such a big heart. And I am just so, so proud to be his mom. He just touched so many people's lives, and, he was just a lover, and he was the sweetest. He loved music. Music's been hard for me. Music is hard, man, because we rocked out and jammed out to all sorts of different kinds of music. I'd look back in his seat, and I still do it sometimes, I can't hardly listen to music. Like when I'm at home and I can listen to music that I know, that's fine. But when I'm out and about and you hear that overhead music and whew, that was what was hard about going out in public at first, because it was like you can't
control.
No.
Yeah.
You can't avoid stuff. Well, you can, but only for so long, because that's one of the hardest things, is that life keeps moving, whether you want it to or not. And I don't like the idea of moving on and moving forward without Jackson. That's hard, because I don't want to. It doesn't feel right. But that's one of the harsh realities of losing a child, is that, you know, you have a lot of help in the beginning, and we've been fortunate because we have still had help and people are still thinking about us. But a lot of people, after a certain amount of time, everybody has to go back to their normal life. And this doesn't feel like normal life to us, because one of our children is gone now.
Yeah, and you don't get to walk away from it.
No. And if I could say anything to anybody as far as like helping someone in their grief journey is, you know, like we have a friend who sends us a card every week and has done it since Jackson died. And to know that people are still thinking about us means so much. I mean, because like I said, after a month, that's when the Novocaine starts wearing off. It's like, oh no, this is your reality now. And it sucks. I mean, there's just no nice way to put it. And people ask me, how am I doing? I hate that question. Because guess what? I'm not great. And I'll tell you that. You know, everybody just naturally says, oh, I'm good. I'm fine. Well, I'm going to say sometimes, I'm not doing that great. But I'm here. And I say, I'm alive. And sometimes that's about all I got. I'm alive.
Did you have anything else that you wanted to share with anyone out there?
You know, like I said, I realize this is not everybody's path. But I feel like if you can look for the beauty in these kind of situations, I think sometimes you can see that, you know, I mean,
it's kind of overwhelming if you really kind of start looking at all the things that have popped up as a result of this.
Yeah.
Good things.
Oh, yeah.
And they're just getting started.
Yeah, trust me. There's times I had one day where I was like, please don't anybody send me any messages or texts, because I can't. I just need one day. And so it was like, because to think you can be overwhelmed with support, that's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
It's a good problem to have. So, I don't know, you know, just when someone's grieving, you know, it's painful, but you can't fix it.
How about trying to keep them moving?
You know, like I said, what I do is I think about what Jackson would want and how I can make him proud. And
it's almost a mindset every morning when you get despite how you may be feeling.
Yeah. And there's days where it almost knocks me flat.
Right.
And I just have to let it do that sometimes.
Just roll with it.
Yeah.
And allow yourself that time.
Yeah. It's amazing how you can have pain and still also sometimes have joy. It has given me empathy to other people's situations, to realize, I always said when I did my first errand, it was AT&T or something that kind of ticked me off. And I was like, oh, if everybody just treated people like they had just lost a child, this world would be so much kinder. You know, so when you realize that everybody has their stuff, everybody's going through something, you know, just be kind. I mean, you know, there is kindness and there is beauty in this world.
But we could all make a little more effort.
Yeah.
Just in our day to day.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, it's not that hard to just be kind, you know. I mean, you don't have to honk at people in traffic, and you don't have to, you know, get mad because somebody goes in front of you. But if you do, understand that people have stuff. Yeah. You know?
Well, this has been a great interview, and I honor you for coming on
Well,
here.
thank you.
Because it takes a lot of courage to talk about these things. But I do think that there's a lot of people that can be helped
I hope so.
through this conversation.
I hope so.
And
I've always said if there's something that I can do that benefits me but also helps other people, then why not?
you know, I think possibly maybe there's that mom that's been stuck and maybe listening to you, you've given her kind of like a repurposing.
I hope so. I hope so, because this is not an easy journey, and I wouldn't wish it upon anybody. And when you enter the, it's kind of when you enter the community of being a bereaved parent, you automatically have something in common with them, because I can talk to you and tell you all day long, but it's not the same as talking to someone else who's lost a child, because if I shared everything that goes on in my head, you'd probably think I was certifiably crazy. And trust me, I feel like it sometimes. But, having that community and reaching out to people and not trying to do this by yourself. Our grief therapist says you weren't born knowing how to tie your shoes, and you weren't born knowing how to ride a bike. How could you expect to know how to grieve the loss of a child? We don't know how to do this because this is not the natural order of things. It's not the way it's supposed to be.
That was a real nugget you just shared as far as getting involved with the grief communities and stuff, because, and I like your analysis of riding a bike and tying your shoe, because especially when you're in the throes of grief, I think innately as people, we try to fix what's going on inside of us, but oftentimes you do need that outside help to get through that.
Well, you don't have to do it by yourself.
Yeah. And even more importantly,
right. You can, but it's a lonely enough journey.
Yeah.
So knowing that you don't have to do it yourself.
Well, thanks so much for coming on today.
Thanks for having me.
And I can't wait for your book. I've already got a preview of some of the art, and I've got to tell you, the art is off the charts.
Oh yeah, it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, so
awesome.
And coming up in January, we have the Team Jackson Poker Tournament.
Oh yeah.
Pretty psyched about that.
Yeah.
So
I don't know how to play poker, but I'll learn.
Neither do I. But anyway, we'll have details on this feed as well for you to check that out. And thank you again for coming on.
Yes. Thank you for having me.
We look forward to having you on in the future as well.
Right. Who knows what the future holds?
Oh, it's going to be a lot.
I think so.
Yeah. Jackson's got some major powers going.
Yep.
he's really ignited some things in your life that for someone that was 7, it's like, wow.
Yep.
So.
That's true.
All right. Well, thanks so much for coming on today.
Thank you.
Bye.